Greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome to another installment of An Old Testament Academic Reacts. Well, once again, Sodom and Gomorrah have received some attention recently here on YouTube, but did they really discover Sodom and Gomorrah this time? Is there any new evidence of anything? In this installment, we are going to answer just that question. Now, when I was actually writing this script for this, I was initially going to include the four major views of Sodom and Gomorrah. However, I thought that would have been too extreme. So instead, I'm going to talk about the view that receives the most attention lately, thanks to the likes of Dr. Bergsma on Pints with Aquinas and Ruslan, I think I got that name right, I'm not quite sure, on his podcast. But let's just start from the beginning, shall we? Now, most of us, when we think of Sodom and Gomorrah, we think of fire and brimstone raining down on the cities for their wickedness and sin, as it is depicted in the account of Genesis 19. And that would be accurate, but is there more to the story? Sodom and the cities on the plain have been a rather controversial site for biblical scholars, that's to say the least, over the past 2 centuries, especially with the recent article that was published in the Nature Scientific Reports at the beginning of the year. This article. So what does this article actually say that is causing quite the kerfluffle among academics? Before we consider or answer that question, we need to understand the argument for the existence and destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. And the view here presented, one that I don't support, is the Northern Sodom theory, or the NST. This theory was rather popular among scholars of the 19th century, and this theory became less and less popular with scholars such as Albright and Wright in the 20th century, and then from the 60s onwards, proponents of this argument faced a lack of access to the archaeology because of politics playing out in the country of Jordan. Currently, excavation of the site called Tal el-Hammam is led by Steve Collins, who is currently Dean of the unaccredited Trinity Southwest University. That's problematic in and of itself. This brings us back to the question, though, what is the kerfluffle surrounding academics about this site? Well, several, to say the least. First, the article claims that there is evidence of a cosmic airburst that destroyed Tal el-Hammam. Now, for those who do not know, Tal el-Hammam was a Middle Bronze Age city in the southern Jordan Valley, located on the southern side of the Dead Sea. That is, at least according to scholars other than Collins. As far as the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah are concerned, for Collins, he followed geographical markers that described the location of Sodom, leading them to the north of the Dead Sea, on the plain of the southern Jordan Valley, using Genesis 13 as his guide, namely to find the cities of the Kekar. Collins argues from his book, though, Discovering the City of Sodom, the fascinating and true discovery of the Old Testament's most infamous city, that the point from Beit El and Ai is this, that you can see the northern tip of the Dead Sea, but you cannot see farther south, and certainly not the area of the Lisson land bridge or anything remotely close to it. This is rather problematic when it comes to other sites in the text of Genesis 19. Even, and I stress even here, oh yes, Answers in Genesis editor Simon Turpin pointed out the articles in the article's initial release back in 2021, he even urges caution. I am using AIG here, though, because even this organization sees problems with Collins' conclusions. Turpin states that Collins locates Zoar near the Arnon River. However, this creates quite the conundrum because that would put Zoar at a distance of nearly 30 miles on the morning of the destruction. Additionally, ancient historians like Josephus and Eusebius state that Zoar does not in fact lie on the northern side of the Dead Sea, but rather on the southern side of the Dead Sea. Indeed, the city was destroyed by a violent conflagration that melted pottery, scorched foundation stones, but the distances between Zoar and the cities on the plain are too far to walk if the cities are 30 miles apart. Now, archaeologists have dated the site to the 17th century, and the city itself was not occupied again until the Iron Age II, which is around 1000 BCE. Even more problematic, though, is the date of the destruction, which Collins dates to 1650. The date here does not align with the life and events of Abraham occurring 2 centuries after the life of Abraham, whom scholars, following a late-date exodus, my view, would put between the 19th and 18th centuries. Collins' attempts to solve this discrepancy is rather unconvincing, though, by redating the exodus to Tuthmosis IV, arguing for a shorter Israel sojourn in Egypt and arguing the lifespans for the patriarchs are honorific and symbolic. Collins even dates the patriarchal period between 1750 and 1540 BCE, which is even more perplexing. In a surprising twist, though, ABR, oh yes, ABR, Associates for Biblical Research, even disagrees with Collins. Dr. Bryant Wood and Company also quibble whether Tel el-Hammam is the correct site of Sodom and Gomorrah. So where mainstream archaeology and biblical scholars reject Tel el-Hammam as the site for Sodom and Gomorrah, Collins argues that sites like, and I'm going to butcher this, Bab Evra and Numera cannot be the sites for Sodom and Gomorrah because the destruction layers there date between 2350 and 2300 BCE. And the destruction is therefore too early to be considered for Sodom and Gomorrah. So some scholars, though, have questioned the dating here of the 2350 and 2300 BCE anyway. ABR argues, though, that the archaeological date for the end of the early Bronze Age 3 period cannot be determined with any degree or measure of accuracy and is also dependent on Egyptian chronology. ABR continues here to state that there are a few correlations for the previous early Bronze II period, suggesting that it was approximately contemporary with the pre-dynastic period, or the first and second dynasties of Egypt. Kenneth Kitchen even states that the dates for the pre-dynastic period are only known to be within 200 years. And the archaeologist Manfred Bietek places the beginning of the Middle Bronze Age around 1920 BCE. Furthermore, the reason for the demise of the urban centers of the EB3 period, with all of its destructions and abandonments, is rather unknown. ABR concludes their argument here by stating that it is generally believed that EB3 was longer, that is the early Bronze Age 3 period, was longer than EB2 because of multiple phases of building and destructions at a number of sites, including, once again, I'm going to butcher this, Bab ev-Ra. Ergo, it is possible that the destruction of Bab ev-Ra and Numera could have occurred around 2067 BCE, and these dates are according to ABR. Now, Collins attempts to use stratigraphy to identify Tel el-Hammam with Sodom. He argues that the Middle Bronze Age destruction should be followed by at least a few centuries of abandonment, since Moses found the area to be uninhabited, according to Numbers 21:20. Contrarily, though, the evidence seems to support the southern location of Sodom because the verses reference the site as a wasteland. And before I continue here with this, I should like to show you guys here the map, in that this is what Collins thinks happened. You can see Tel el-Hammam in the northeast, you got Jericho there, the Jordan Valley, and then you've got the airburst that happened just north in the northern part of the Dead Sea. I just wanted to give you guys a reference shot of what Collins is getting at here. Now, getting back to the argument, contrarily though, the evidence seems to support a southern location of Sodom because the verses reference the site as a wasteland. Interestingly though, occupation of the site of Tel el-Hammam came to an abrupt halt during the Middle Bronze Age, and archaeologists have found remains buried under 1 meter or 3 feet, for my American friends, of ash and debris. Collins assumes this matches the destruction of Sodom as it is described in Genesis 19. Collins does not succeed, though, to provide a date for this destruction according to ABR. Additionally, there is insufficient excavation to determine if the destruction was throughout the entire site or merely in a local occurrence. Wood suggests that there must be a site-wide destruction by fire accompanied by an earthquake. However, this has yet to be determined. And Eugene Merrill even cautions Collins' conclusions, stating that the current archaeological and biblical data rule out Hammam as a viable option for Sodom, reassuring his audience that the stratigraphy, pottery assemblages, destruction layers, and architectural features point to the late Middle Bronze Age, or around 1600 BCE. This date must account for a date for Abraham and Lot, as well as leading to Merrill's conclusion that Hammam must be rejected. At least Collins' Tel el-Hammam must be rejected. Merrill doesn't stop there, though. No, he continues, arguing the following considerations. Collins' hypothesis undermines the chronological system of the Masoretic text, which seems to place the patriarchs between 2100 to 1700 BCE. Most scholars do date the patriarchs between 2100 to 1700 BCE. All subsequent biblical historical accounts no longer jibe with each other or fit the periods to which a 1600 date assigns them. Besides the dismantling of the biblical chronological schemes and the rendering of their data as incorrect or meaningless, other numerical features such as the lifespans of the patriarchs must also be discarded or radically reinterpreted. And finally, the methodological fallacy of testing and assessing biblical information in light of presumed archaeological primacy and the necessary shift of the ground of authority from text to tell. In summation, here are his arguments. Tel el-Hammam simply does not fit the data for Sodom, ergo we must dismiss this site as a possible candidate for Sodom. So that would be Eugene Merrill's concern about it. But I did want to conclude, before I jump in, I got a little carried away there, but that's okay. I did want to conclude here with something that I think harms science and archaeology and biblical studies as a whole. In an op-ed article, archaeologist Morag Kirsel states that for myriad of reasons, and like many other scholars working in Southwest Asia, we are profoundly disappointed, speaking on behalf of everyone, when scientific reports, a peer-reviewed journal operating under one of the world's leading scientific journals, Nature, published pseudo-scientific research about a supposed ancient cosmic airburst destroying the Tal el-Hammam site in what is today modern Jordan. The authors speculate that this putative event may have been the basis for the biblical story of Sodom, in which a city was allegedly destroyed by stones and fire sent from the sky. As of the date of this article, 15 December 2021, the original scientific report's story has been accessed 348,000 times and has generated 20,000 tweets or posts, if you do Twitter now since they changed it, including astronaut Chris Hadfield, who has more than 2 million followers, on social media. Furthermore, it has been covered by 176 news outlets, such as the Smithsonian Magazine, which as of today, you can still access the article. I know because I just accessed it, and was ranked 55th over 300,000 tracked articles of similar age in all academic journals. What fuels this, though? Well, Kirsel says it is clickbait and sensationalism, and I wholeheartedly agree. For example, the Conversation article written by some of the study's authors featured the enticing title, "A Giant Space Rock Dismantled an Ancient Middle Eastern City and Everyone in It," possibly inspiring the biblical story of Sodom. The piece was widely republished, including in Sapiens as "Did an Asteroid Shape This Famous Biblical Story?" A clear tease. It seems that the goal of Collins and his team were to prove an objective that they had already concluded, namely that Tal el-Hammam is the site of Sodom, when it actually isn't. That is what frustrates scholars, and me included. That is, in this case, poor archaeology and work bent to meet that objective, according to Kirsel. Well, folks, that concludes this video, and if you guys liked the video, don't forget to hit the like button, and as always, subscribe. Finally, let me know what you think in the comments below, and until next time, I'll see you later.